Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
It's The In Show, Australia's only show dedicated to innovation from Adelaide, Australia and across the globe.
Yes, hello again. It's David Grice and Troy Sincock. Once more, we're talking about innovators and entrepreneurs, startups, the people with great ideas who are really making them a reality, and we really knuckle down and find out about the challenges that have faced them along the way.
And Troy, The In Show's now listened to in 11 countries, so it is just really exciting to see those people just taking on some of these new ideas and new concepts.
And as we've learnt over the last 14 weeks, it really is about people pushing out these ideas globally. These aren't ideas that just, remain in your city. These are things that can be felt on the other side of the world to help make people's lives just that little bit better.
Yeah, and thanks so much to all those that have subscribed to the show, and please help us spread the word by sharing it with your friends.
Yeah, you can check us out at theinshow.online, Facebook and Twitter. And over the last few weeks, we've been featuring some of the influential people who are coming to Adelaide as part of Hybrid World Adelaide. And it's on this Wednesday at Tonsley Innovation Precinct for 4 days. This week, we'll be announcing the last winner of a double pass.
We'll also be doing some special podcasts each day to highlight the cool things that have happened at the event. This week, we chat to Alex Lee from Dragon Friends, a hilarious Dungeons & Dragons podcast adventure that's here just for Hybrid World Adelaide. And joining us in the studio is Meir Moalem from satellite and telecommunications company Sky and Space Global, who was in Adelaide as part of the International Astronautical Conference.
Now here's Claire with more in news, including a story about a Chinese group of researchers who've developed a new battery that can be powered by your tears. What else have you got for us, Claire?
Thanks, David and Troy. Augmented reality is becoming increasingly popular within the automotive industry. In particular, Microsoft's HoloLens headset, which enables the user to work in augmented reality, is being adopted by motor vehicle manufacturers around the world. Augmented reality is a technology that allows the user to change the physical appearance of existing things in the real world. It usually involves weird-looking goggles or a headset. So far, Volvo, Audi and Volkswagen are testing out the HoloLens for different purposes. The most recent company to use the HoloLens headset is Ford. Although Ford is still using the traditional method of using clay models, the use of HoloLens and augmented reality could save plenty of time and energy. Other companies around the world have also begun using the HoloLens to better their efficiency, including Lowe's in the US and even NASA. It seems augmented reality will continue to become more popular with a range of industries and commercial markets. In China, a group of researchers have created a new kind of battery, and get this, it could eventually be powered by your tears. In a bid to create safer batteries for medical devices and wearables, scientists from Fudan University have developed a saltwater-powered battery. It's also a very real possibility that they could be powered by other bodily fluids in the future, such as blood, sweat, or even urine. Normal batteries are made up of three main elements: a positively charged electrode, a negatively charged electrode, and acidic electrolytes that are flammable, corrosive, and damaging. These new ones are fueled by IV rehydration liquids and salt water, which are both harmless. This means that it could be a safer alternative for people who need to have battery-powered devices inside their body. Two versions have been developed. One is similar to a strip of tape and the other is a hollow tube with threads made of carbon inside it that could be attached to wearable devices or smart clothing in the future. Who knows, maybe our bodily fluids might one day save lives and power the world one battery at a time. And companies and brands are turning to the esports industry for global visibility. Esports is video gaming that involves competitive tournaments that are staged either online or in stadiums. The world's best teams of professional players are pitted against one another in games such as League of Legends. The relatively new esports industry hosts events that attract viewerships equal to that of the Super Bowl. It has an international audience of almost 250 million, so it's no surprise brands and companies are beginning to cash in. One of these is our very own Adelaide Football Club. Recently, they acquired a professional esports team, which is an Australian first for mainstream sport. Legacy Esports is based in Sydney and they're one of the top 8 teams battling it out in the Oceanic Pro League. If they win this competition, they'll be headed straight to the League of Legends World Championship. With a projected market worth of $1.5 billion by 2020, it'll be interesting to see how many companies can use this platform to reach the young and tech-savvy. And that's what's in news this week.
Thanks, Claire. Well, David, it seems that the Adelaide Crows are not only grand final worthy on the field, but also in the world of e-gaming.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful that they're looking outside the box in terms of how to engage with their fans and their future audiences and so forth. And I think I can't wait to get him on the in-show to talk about it.
Isn't it incredible to to think about what is going on behind the scenes at these sporting teams that we know nothing about? I mean, at the moment we see them, as footy teams out there on the oval. We see their merchandise brands. We, see them inviting members into their inner sanctum and, really trying to enrol young people in their club as young as possible. This is another great way to do that.
Oh, absolutely. And just think of the size and scale of the market that they're as a brand, they're able to engage with. And this week at Hybrid World, Troy, you get to play League of Legends yourself.
Fantastic. It's David Grice and Troy Sincock, and if you've missed an episode, make sure you subscribe to the In-Show podcast on iTunes. In the next 10 minutes, we talk to Meir Moalem from satellite and telecommunications company Sky and Space Global about what they're doing in satellite communications. Alex Lee from Dragon Friends joins us. Now, Dragon Friends is the funniest Dungeons and Dragons adventure you'll ever see, or hear for that matter. Dragon Friends descends on Hybrid World Adelaide this week for a live recording of their popular podcast where comedians muddle their way through a D&D campaign. Alex, what on earth inspired you to create Dragon Friends?
Well, it was actually created by our dungeon master, Dave, who wanted to play D&D with his friends, and none of us knew how to play, so he's roped us into playing this game with him live on stage. And it's lots of fun, and part of the fun of it is how bad we are, really, and how we sort of just figure it out as we go along and make lots of mistakes. Tell
us about Dungeons and Dragons. For those people that don't know, give us the quick synopsis.
Dungeons and Dragons is a game. I think the best way to kind of start off is the TV show Stranger Things. That's the game that the kids are playing at the beginning of that. It's kind of a role-playing fantasy game, which is, super cool. And you kind of all play different characters, and you go on an adventure together, which is kind of guided by the dungeon master who kind of tells the story. So it's kind of a group storytelling game, really. And if you want to make an action, like, you have to roll a dice, and the number on the dice kind of lets you decide whether you're allowed to take that action or not.
It sounds like stacks of fun. So literally you don't even know what you're getting yourself in for before you begin the podcast.
That's right, yeah. So we have the Dungeon Master, Dave, will kind of figure out where he sort of wants the story to go, and he might have a few sort of bad guys that we're going to meet along the way, and they're voiced by Eden Lacey and Ben Jenkins. So they kind of have a plan. But, of course, because once the sort of team of adventurers get onto it, it almost always goes off the rails, and we never sort of go into the cave that we're meant to go in and decide to go off in another direction. And so he kind of has to improvise as we go along. It's very silly, and it can kind of go in any sort of direction, and none of us know where it's going to go.
So how did you get involved in it, Alex?
Yeah, we pretty much just got together one day a few years ago and played just at home for the first time, and thought we'd see how it went, and then we went onto the Giant Dwarf Theatre in Sydney and did our first live show, I think, in 2015. And we've done 3 adventures since then, so they kind of go for pretty much the whole year, and then we start a new one in a different place.
So you're here for Hybrid World. What can we expect from seeing you guys?
I think it's a really good time to kind of experience a show for the first time. I know we'll have a lot of our loyal podcast listeners in the audience, but if you've never heard us before, we'll be doing a sort of one-off adventure. So you won't have to have caught up on 50 episodes of the podcast. And I imagine it'll be the characters that we normally play in a new situation. So I play a half-orc with a heart of gold. His name is Filch, and she is very, very sort of trigger-happy. She always kind of goes to violence as her first instinct. There's also comedian Michael Hing will be playing a half-elf, whose name is Friezo, we started him off as a good character, and eventually the decisions that Michael made along the way made us realise that he is evil, and he will just probably be trying to murder any obstacle that he comes across. And we'll also have Simon Greiner playing a halfling, which is a small half sort of elf person, and Eden Lacey will be playing a handsome hero who is not very smart. So it's lots of fun. We'll be thrown into some sort of terrifying situation that we have to figure our way out of, and it'll be really, really good chance to jump on board if you haven't heard us before.
I've definitely had to listen to the podcast, and you're right. You don't have to know anything about Dungeons and Dragons. There's just a lot of chaos, and it sounds like you guys are having so much fun. You kind of get engaged immediately.
Yeah, we hope so. We it's one of my favourite shows to do because you're just there on stage, kind of going along on an adventure with your friends, and everyone really gets involved and helps us out, so we really love it.
Well, Alex, thanks so much for joining us. Dragon Friends sounds like a whole lot of fun. You can check it out online. You've got a website?
Yep, that's right. We're at thedragonfriends.com. And, you can download our podcast anywhere. You can find a podcast, basically. And
you can see Alex and her team performing live at Hybrid World Adelaide. Thanks so much for joining us on The In Show.
Thanks so much for having me.
It's David Grice and Troy Sincock, and make sure you subscribe to the In Show podcast to keep up to date with our daily wrap from Hybrid World Adelaide this week. Next, Meir Moalem from satellite and telecommunications company Sky and Space Global talks about their involvement in the International Astronautical Conference and the latest in satellite communications.
Adelaide is starting to be recognised as a smart city, nationally and globally. The City of Churches is rapidly gaining a reputation as the city for innovation. Smart city innovation is becoming a big part of our future. The Adelaide Smart City Studio is supporting people that are creating new smart city products and services for global markets. What we've taken for granted is now being embraced by residents and visitors alike. Adelaide Smart City Studio, creating opportunities.
Hi, I'm Scott Bucock from Heggs Australia, and you're listening to The In Show.
It's David Grice and Troy Sincock. Now, Meir Moalem is a jet fighter pilot with over 20 years of experience in management, R&D and operation of state-of-the-art projects in space systems and unmanned aerial systems. He's also the CEO and Managing Director of Sky and Space Global, a company dedicated to providing affordable communication services to anyone, anywhere, anytime. Meir, welcome to Adelaide. Tell us, where did your journey into the world of space begin?
Well, thank you very much for having me here. Well, it started probably when I was in kindergarten, and I got my first book about space and planets and the universe. So I got interested into that as a young boy. Fortunately for me, my parents encouraged me to learn as much as I can and, go to lectures and stuff like that. But then I enlisted to the army, to the military, as is compulsory in Israel, and I found myself at the Air Force for 27 years and almost forgot about that dream. But somewhere down the road, I was fortunate enough to become the project manager for the Israeli first astronaut flight on board the shuttle Columbia. And that got me back into working on space. Later on, I was responsible for setting up as a team the Israeli Air Force Space Systems branch, and then was heavily involved in the Israeli space program. So it was a very natural step for me when I retired from the Air Force to start thinking about setting up my own company, fortunately with very good partners and friends from the space industry, Meidad Pariente and Jonathan Shrama, which are our partners in Sky and Space Global.
How do you get a job like that? You've just made it sound so easy, but how do you go from being a guy involved in the Air Force to literally getting involved in space?
Oh, it's a lot of hard work, a lot of determination. But, at the end of the day, I've gained a lot of experience and know-how and expertise during my years of service. So it was, as I've said, a natural step of thinking, okay, how can I take the things that I'm enthusiastic about, that I'm happy to work on a daily basis, and I'm also quite knowledgeable in them. And from then on, it was just finding the right idea, the right partners who think the same like yourself, who have the shared vision, and trying to set up a company. It's not easy. It's not easy even if you have a very good idea and a very good team, and a very good vision, you still have to find the funding for that. And it takes time. Fortunately for us, we did it, and we did it really good so far.
So what was it like being involved with the space shuttles and the space missions? Did you actually go to space yourself?
No, unfortunately I did not. Not too late for me, but so far no, I have not. But I was fortunate enough to work with NASA on the Shuttle Columbia flight. Unfortunately, it ended as a tragedy with the 7 members of the Columbia dying during re-entry. But it was a very good experience working on such a project for such a long period of time with this professional organization like NASA, with these amazing people, these astronauts, and that has taught me a lot.
What was the impact of the outcome of Columbia on the people involved in the mission?
Well, obviously, it's a personal tragedy, first of all, for the families themselves, for Rona Ramon, Ilan's wife, and the other astronauts' families as well. But it's also an organizational tragedy. I mean, it's think about multi-billion-dollar organizations with tens of thousands of employees that is focused on sending shuttles to space and suffers such a loss. So it puts a stop to the entire operation of the organization. But at the end of the day, you learn from such failures. So space is a risky business. You have to accept the fact that once in a while you'll have to pay some price.
What did you learn?
To focus on the details, to ask questions, to raise doubts, always. Never believe at first hearing on what people are telling you, always question them. But more than that, question yourselves. Am I making the right decision? Do I have all the facts? Is there something else that I can do to improve my chances? Identify the risk, mitigate the risk.
And at what point do you stop asking those questions? I mean, when there's so much writing on things, how do you get to that end point where you're like, we're all okay here, we've mitigated as much risk as we possibly can, we feel good?
Well, probably when they put you down in the grave, not before that. This is something that it becomes a habit in your daily lives all the time. It's not only, when you're the CEO of the company, it's in everything you do. If you drive your car, did I look in the mirror in the last 30 seconds or not? Probably not. I should look again. And this is just an example. So it's a way of life. It's not that you're paranoid or you're always looking behind your back, but you're just questioning yourself all the time. Can I do better? Have I done the best I can? Is there some way to improve? Have I missed something?
You've really been surrounded by risk your entire career, haven't you, though? You're someone that really puts things on the line.
Well, I don't know. I'm not the kind of guy who goes bungee jumping or
Don't tell me you're scared of bungee jumping when you've been a jet fighter pilot.
I'm terrified of bungee jumping. It's a crazy thing to do. It's much safer to be in a jet fighter and fly and do 9Gs. It's a much safer thing to do.
Tell us about your time in the military.
It was an exciting time and a very, of course, a learning experience. But also to fly jets, it's great. It's a lot of fun. And what you do most of the time is you train, which is a lot of fun. You do air-to-air combat or whatever. But it's not all fun. I mean, after all, you are in the military and you're training towards acts of violence. And unfortunately, in Israel, although we seek peace all the time, once in a while we do have to engage in some kind of combat, and that's the not so fun part of it. It's a very dangerous business. It's a risky business, don't get me wrong. Although I feel more comfortable in an airplane than bungee jumping, it's still a risky business, and you have to be extremely professional when you're doing that. Again, always consider the risk. What would happen if I have an engine cutoff? What do I do? It's always at the back of your mind.
And at the speeds that you fly at as well.
Oh, yeah, of course.
You don't have much time to think.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell us what led you into getting into the area of satellite and communications.
Yeah. So I retired at 2011. And again, I thought, well, what can I do with what I have, with my experience? I met with Meir Moalem, one of my partners. He was just leaving the Israel aerospace industry to set up his own business, again, space-related. And we found out that we shared the same ideas and thoughts about the space industry. Afterwards, we met Yonatan Shrama, our third partner, and together we started to devise an idea of using advanced satellites, which we call nanosatellites, very small, very unique, very new technology. How can we take that technology and do some kind of viable commercial business with that? And we came to the idea of providing communication services. You may have heard of a company called Planet. They have satellites for remote sensing, so they basically take pictures of the Earth and sell them. We are in a totally different business, communication. Phone calls, instant messaging like WhatsApp, sending a text message, sending and receiving emails, stuff like that.
The value of this is pretty profound because there's so many areas on the planet that haven't got access to any sort of cellular or data networks or anything like that. So the satellite communications is going to be something that's going to be very, very valuable in time to come.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly what we were thinking about when we started. And when we researched the market, it was unbelievable. 3 billion people without sustainable connectivity. And, we live in a Western society. We're kind of used to megabits per second, high-definition movies on Facebook or YouTube or whatever. But these people cannot even send a text message. And once you can provide them with this kind of possibility and connectivity, it's a game-changing. It's a world-changing technology as far as these areas are concerned.
So where are you with your progress thus far in that field?
Well, we're quite advanced. We have launched our first 3 satellites just 3 months ago. And just so you would appreciate the timeline, we only started 18 months ago our business. So in less than 18 months, we've launched 3 satellites. We've tested them. And for the first time in history, we have demonstrated the possibility to communicate between satellites which are that small. And by that small, they're kind of a shoebox size, 30 centimeters satellite. Not only communicate between the satellite, we have demonstrated doing a phone call from a regular smartphone using a very small device that we call a hotspot to our satellites. And you can do a phone call. You can send a text message. Everything we said we would do, we actually demonstrated. Not only that, our next stage is even more challenging and mind-boggling. It's not 3 satellites, not 30. It's 200 satellites to be deployed over the equatorial region within 2 years. So it's extremely challenging. But we are already working on that at full steam.
It's the In Show with David Grice and Troy Sincock. We're talking to Meir Moalem, the CEO and Managing Director of Sky and Space Global. Next, we'll find out how he gets his satellites up into space.
Download the Phoner app before you head to your next event. Find people easier, market yourself better, and get connected using Phoner. That's spelled PFONR. Phoner. Available in the App Store now.
Hi, I'm Robin Freeth from TEDx Adelaide, and you're with Troy and David on The In Show.
It's David Grice and Troy Sincock, and you can check us out at theinshow.online, Facebook, and we're on Twitter as well. We're speaking to Meir Moalem, a jet fighter pilot who's now the CEO and Managing Director of Sky and Space Global, a company dedicated to providing affordable communication.
So, Meir, we were just talking about getting satellites into orbit. How on earth do you get them up there?
A lot of fuel. Rockets. It's rocket science. So there are several companies in the world that provide launch services. It used to be something that only governments did, but as we all know, Elon Musk with SpaceX has broken that monopoly with his private company, and there are several other endeavors. We have a contract with Virgin Orbit, which is a company owned by the Virgin Group, and they're developing a very small, it's almost 30 meters long, but a very small missile to launch satellites such as ours to space. So we have a strategic contract with them, and they will launch some of our constellation, and we are in discussions with other launch providers as well. It's extremely costly, tens of thousands of dollars for 1 kilogram of satellite. So do the math.
And can you only launch one at a time?
Oh, no. You just fill up the missiles with as much as it can carry. So if the capacity is, let's say, 500 kilograms, and you have 5 kilogram satellites, you can put quite a lot of satellites within that.
And how heavy are yours?
The first 3 that we already have in space are 3 kilograms, but our next generation, the Constellation, will be much more capable satellites, so they will be around 8-10 kilograms in mass, but they will be extremely powerful and very capable in order to provide these kinds of services.
And when you fire the missile into space with the satellites, there's some sort of, I was going to say explosion, but clearly not. You don't want to blow up the things you've just sent into space. How does it separate and how are they distributed across, because I'm assuming what you need them to do is be spread broadly so they can sort of interconnect.
Yes, you're quite right. And that's exactly the way you do it. You put them on board the launcher, but you put them in a kind of device that enables you to deploy them sequentially. So let's say the rocket gets to the orbit and it shoots off one satellite, then it moves on, shoots off another, moves on, shoots off another, and that way you can control the distance between the satellites and put them exactly at the position that you want. And after they are there, the rocket just burns off back to the atmosphere, and then you control the satellites through their own propulsion. So you have a propulsion system on board, and then you can change, not really easily, but you can control the distance between the satellites and ensure that they are in the same formation.
And does the weight of the satellites matter when you're trying to control them in space?
No, not at all. Not at all. It matters for their moment of inertia.
Yep.
The bigger they are, the heavier they are, they have a larger moment of inertia. So if you want to turn them around, it would take a larger mass in order to do that. But other than that, mass has no significance. It's just gravity. That's what's controlling them. And gravity is the same no matter what is the mass.
So what is really motivating you here? Like I get the opportunity to commercialize this venture. That's really exciting. But it sounds to me like there's a bit of a higher calling for you, you know, the possibility of interconnecting, of having the world connected in a way that it's not currently connected. What does that mean to you?
Well, you know, yesterday I gave a presentation at the IAC, and I started with the company vision. And I've said to the audience, it's not enough to have a very good idea or extremely good technology or even an exceptional team or even the funding. That's not good enough. You have to have some kind of a shared vision in the company in order to push things forward. So our vision is to provide affordable communication services to anyone, anywhere, anytime, including those people that we've just talked about that have been denied so far of this basic human right. And by doing that, what we believe will happen is not only we will change their personal day-to-day lives, we will change the entire infrastructure in the places they live in. Because there's a lot of talk, I don't know how much you're familiar with the term ICT, communication, information, and technology revolution that is going on. And ICT, what it causes, it improves the lives of everyone because we're using technology every day, we're using information every day. We just we don't even know that we're using it. So if we provide better communication to these areas, we provide actually better education because schools will have connectivity. They could get some data. We provide better healthcare, because you could call a doctor remotely and he could diagnose you and give you a medical treatment. We provide better financial systems, again, because you can transfer funds over your phone through financial applications on the phone. You provide better governance because the government knows what goes on. Was there a flood? Was there an earthquake? Are there fires? Are there some kind of gangs going around and robbing people? So everything improves once you get connectivity. And we believe that's a good call, changing the world for the good, even in minute scale measures.
It's awesome to hear people with such strong vision, you know. And it's I read a quote very recently that those that are crazy enough to think they can change the world are usually those that can. And for me, it was like listening to what you're saying about that you know purpose and that vision is really, really powerful. Just putting communications aside for a sec, what do you think from a technology point of view is coming that we should be aware of?
First of all, it's very, very difficult to answer that question. And I'm just thinking, you know, what I imagined 20 years ago and what I've imagined 10 years ago and 5 years ago and the rate that technology improves always surprises me. Always. It moves so fast. So it's very difficult to really know. I mean, think about the smartphones that we have today. Who would have thought when it first came out that the last thing that you would do is use them as a phone to call each other? We're doing everything else other than calling each other, right?
That's true.
So it's very difficult to know. But if we put space technology aside for a moment, I believe blockchain is a very big thing. Not the cryptocurrency, not Bitcoin or Ethereum or that. I mean the blockchain itself, the ability to have unhackable ledgers which are independent of other systems is something very big that we're not sure exactly how to use or how to implement, but that will come within a few years. Miniaturization. Other thing I think that will improve lives, as we talked before, is biomed initiatives, new kinds of drugs and medicines which are based on biological research. Again, saving people from cancer, or saving people from other diseases. That's a really important cause, and I think it would change the world. Just imagine if, for some reason, no more lung cancer. What would it do to the world?
Meir, what would you say? You know, obviously, it was really great hearing you still being childlike in your curiosity and your enthusiasm for all these things even now. There's plenty of people that have wonderful ideas that, maybe think that they don't have the skills to execute them, or perhaps they don't have the resources, around them, or they just think it's a crazy idea. No one's going to, take this on board. What would you say to those people? Do you have a word of advice for someone with a crazy idea?
I think I have. We all have crazy ideas. Most of us, like you say, just think to ourselves, oh yeah, it's a crazy idea. It's nice that I've had it, and you move on with your lives. Some of us think, okay, it's a good idea. Maybe I'll try to do something out of it. And out of these people, very few actually succeed. And I think the main reason for failures out of the people who actually try to pursue their dream is understanding your own limitations. Just the fact that you had the best idea in the world for a new technology, that doesn't mean that you know how to build a business model, you know how to run a company, or you know how to talk to investors, or you know how to even handle human resources within your business. So one of the most important things is to understand that you do not know everything. You have a great idea, great. Find the partners who will help you realize this dream. Now, fortunately for me, and I've mentioned my two partners, the three of us complement each other. So each of us has his own strengths and weaknesses, and we are very much aware of what we can and cannot do, and we rely on the other two to help them when they need this kind of help. One of the very common mistakes entrepreneurs do is they never give up on controlling their business, and they might be the world's best engineers, but the world's lousiest businessmen. So you need to really understand that. The second thing is, we always say pursue your dream. Make sure your dream is something which has some foundation in reality. Ask yourself hard questions. And this is also common when you ask an entrepreneur hard questions on his idea. They think, they're just trying to down-ramp me. They don't want me to succeed. But that's not the case. You should ask yourself the hardest questions to make sure that your idea is viable and is real. And if you do that, all good.
Fantastic. Meir Moalem, thank you so much for joining us. It's been wonderful to speak to you, and I think you've given every little boy that ever dreamed about space great inspiration for their futures. Thanks so much for joining us on the In Show.
Thank you very much, Troy and David. It's been great to be here. I had a lot of fun.
It's all about innovation on The In Show, and if you've got an event you'd like us to highlight, just drop us a line at theinshow.online. You can check us out on Facebook and Twitter.
Next week on The In Show.
The Winnovation Awards celebrating women in innovation are on this Friday, and next week we speak to two inspiring ladies that have developed ideas that are impacting and inspiring people's lives.
And talking about inspiring ladies, Claire will have some more weird and wonderful innovations from around the world. And make sure you check out theinshow.online. You can subscribe to iTunes and listen to our podcast, find out more about this week's guests, share an innovation you're working on, and you can even follow us on Facebook and Twitter.
Well, Troy, this week's the last opportunity for people to win tickets to Hybrid World. So congratulations to Adam Hussein. You've got a double pass to Hybrid World coming your way thanks to The In Show. Well, it's been another great show again this week. We talk more about what's in next Monday on The In Show. Now, before we go, here's Scott Bucock from Hex Australia telling us about his winning formula. Yes, I call it the winning cycle, and the W is why, the I is idea, the N is for network, N for no man's land, I for innovate, N for now the how, and G for go for it. Now the how's at the end there simply because the how's the easy part. There's Google, there's friends, there's network, but it's all about why you actually had the idea in the first place. The I is quite interesting. I like to talk about the I a lot because there's adults versus kids on this one. Adults have a real problem. They come up with an idea and then they really go, no one's going to buy it. No one's going to, what's it going to look like? I've got to make it the best. Whereas kids go, they come up with an idea and they just go for it. They just go, it's going to look like this, it's going to feel like this. And to give you an example of that is my kids 8 and 10. I took my phone away one day and for about 10 minutes and came back and said, here, Dad, here's an idea. And what they'd done was put a broom and a mop together, taped it together, and said, there you go, you can broom and mop at the same time. Well, that's pretty cool. I said, but how are we going to sell it? I said, so we sat down and we come up with some marketing ideas, and we said, why don't we call it the Bop? And then and so it was all about the sell, and we said it's great to have the idea, but how are we really going to make it an item, give it some personality, I guess. Anyway, that bot now has a coffee machine in the middle of it, just in case you want one halfway around the house. But the story is the idea with kids. They love coming up with ideas, so we should enhance and embrace and actually educate them on how to take those to market.
That was The In Show. Subscribe to The In Show podcast on iTunes. Presented by David Grice and Troy Sincock. News by Shannon Chamberlain and Claire Murphy. Produced by Jason Walker. The In Show. Brought to you by Adelaide Smart City Studio.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.